If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is episode 4 of Adeptus Custodes, What's Winning Right Now, where I take a look at a tournament winning Custodes list, go through the path of victory with a breakdown of the list. We got our answer of what the next detachment win would be. We can thank the one and only Stephan for a Jetbike heavy shield host win. We will take a look at his path to victory, the list with a breakdown of this very fast and reactive Adeptus Custodes list. And let's start by taking a look at his path to victory. This is a path to victory for Stephan. He played at the Warhammer World Grand Tournament on February 15th, 2025. His game 1 was the Adeptus Custodes versus the Tyranids, and that was a 97-38 win. Game 2 was against the Orcs, and another strong win at 90-58. Game 3 and his best game was a mirror match against the Adeptus Custodes, and that was a 100-37 win. Game 4 was the Adeptus Custodes versus Blood Angels, and that was a strong 84-30 win. And then his final game, Game 5, was against the Tau Empire, and that once again was a strong win at 89-43. Stephan Adeptus Custodes win that GT 5-0. Stephan got a strong 460 points out of 500, and I think that is our highest yet. Congratulations, Stephan, once again on a Shield Host win. Now let's take a look at this Shield Host list. And this Shield Host list was played by Stephan from the Vanguard Tactics, and it was 2,000 points. His Warlord was a Bladechampion. For his other characters, he had 2 Shield Captains on Dawn Eagle Jetbike. Both of them had Hurricane Bolters, and one of them had the Panoptic Specs enhancement, which allows the bearer's unit to ignore cover with their ranged attacks, and that pairs very well with the Hurricane Bolters. For his battle line, he has 1 unit of Custodian Guard. There's only 4 models in this, and he's going to be joining it with the Bladechampion. He has 2 Guardian Spears, 1 Vexilla, Misericordia, and their Presidium Shield, and then he also has another Sentinel Blade and Presidium Shield in there as well. For his other units, he has 2 units of 3 Allarus Custodians, then he has 3 units of 2 Vertus Praetors, and all of them have the Hurricane Bolters. He does have 2 units of Venatari. One is a big 6-man unit with 5 lances and one of the Tarsus bucklers with the Kinetic Destroyer, just to add a little bit of Overwatch protection. The other unit of Venatari is a 3-man, and they have Venatari lances. Finally, he does have a unit of 4 Witchseekers. And that's Stephan's list, and it comes to 2,000 points. Let's move on to a quick unit breakdown of what this list can do. Let's start by taking a look at some of the Shield Host rules that do help this list. We do have the Army rule, of course, Martial Kata, Combat Phase. These units can either pick Sustain Hits 1 or the Lethal Hits ability as long as they have the Martial Kata, which is every one of his units except for the Witchseekers. The Shield Host Detachment rule is Martial Mastery, where at the start of the battle round, you can pick either crits on 5s or an extra AP 1 in the Combat Phase. A few of the strong stratagems that will be used in this list quite commonly on any of these units. We have Arcane Genetic Alchemy from 1 CP, and this is in any phase. Once the mortal wounds have been allocated, it gives the unit a 4-up funeral pain to mortal wounds. And this is great for when any of these units do take a large amount of mortal wounds. He can use a CP and have a 4-up funeral pain against those mortal wounds. Next up is Multi-Potentiality, and this will be used all throughout the army as well, and this is a fallback, shoot and charge stratagem for 1 CP. Those are the key rules that will be used commonly throughout the list, so let's go through the unit breakdown and some of the other stratagems that will be used on specific units. We will start the unit breakdown with the Bladechampion and the 4 Custodian Guard. This is where most of our Custodes players would put a unit of Wardens, but Stephan, that mad lad, he went for a unit of 4 Custodian Guard. This does run with his list theme of fast, very hard-hitting units. The Bladechampion gives reliable charges with reroll the charge roll and a once per game advance in charge. The Bladechampion also has 3 different melee profiles to choose from when attacking. Most of the time you're taking that devastating wounds profile. The Custodian Guard have their Stand Vigil ability to reroll wounds of 1 and reroll the wound roll if you're on objective they control. And this is the first of 3 units who can reroll the wound roll in this list. They are also the only unit in the list that can use Vigilance Eternal for 1 CP to stick an objective they control in the movement phase. This unit is fantastic for taking objectives, So you just want to set them up so they're always taking objectives, and he has those 2 Presidium shields in there just to give this unit a little bit of extra toughness and just be able to take a little bit of extra fire. He only has those 2 Guardian Spears in the unit, but with reroll 1s or all the wounds if we're on objective we control, and with that Bladechampion in there, they will be able to deal out damage while taking a few extra hits. Next up is the 2 Shield Captains with the 2 Vertus Praetors units. These 2 units of Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle with the 2 Vertus Praetors are really interesting in the Shield Host detachment. The Shield Captain has a strategic mastery to reduce the cost of a stratagem by 1, and this ability can only be used once per battle round. It doesn't matter how many of these units you have in the list, you cannot double up on strategic mastery per battle round. Luckily, this is not why he is taking the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle. He takes them for Sweeping Advance. Sweeping Advance opens up a lot of room for some really clever plays, and this can be used at the end of our fight phase or the opponent's fight phase, as long as this unit was in combat this turn. Quicksilver Execution is used after a normal move, and Sweeping Advance is a normal move or a fallback move, so that means he could drop some Mortal Wounds bomb when he's using Sweeping Advance. He can charge something, hit it with 16 melee attacks, 6 from the captain, 5 from each one of these bikes. They hit on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2 with the Lance ability, so that will give them +1 to the wound roll when they charge that turn. Then either crits on 5s or AP 1 from the detachment rule, and then the army rule Martial Kata will give them sustained hits 1 or lethal hits. So these things can really crank out a lot of damage for only being a small model unit. They have a good chance to kill whatever they charge, then they can use Sweeping Advance to move back to keep them from being shot or charged. Stephan could also be aggressive and move these further up the board or even into the enemy deployment. A stratagem I did want to mention for this unit is Archaeotech Munitions for 1 CP. Another interesting but smart choice in this detachment is using the Vertus Hurricane Bolters instead of the Salvo Launchers. If the target is within 9 inches, that is 18 shots, hitting on 2+, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2 with twin linked. It is the twin linked and damage 2 that adds the spice. For 1 CP, the Hurricane Bolters can have sustained hits or lethal hits. These will gun down infantry with ease and plink off some wounds off of those tougher units. The melee in this list is so deadly, that becomes the anti-tank. Stephan also had a 3rd unit of Vertus Praetors, but with no character. 2 models is only 150 points for a fast but tough unit for secondary actions, or taking out the opponent's utility units. This would not be a unit that a lot of CP gets used on, even so it would be great for its job. Toughness 7, the 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable and 5 wounds. These doing secondary actions where the opponent has a chance to deny it on their turn before the unit would score the points. These cannot be taken out with small arms fire from a few models. There has to be some decent dedicated fire to even have a chance to stop these from completing that action. Next is the 2 units of 3 Allarus Terminators. 3 Allarus is a threat to a lot of units in the game. 15 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2, with reroll the wounds when targeting a character, vehicle, or monster unit. Then we have AP 1 or crits on 5s from Martial Mastery, then sustained hits 1 or lethal hits from the Army rule. These are a serious threat to any of those above units. They also have the ability Golden Light. It is a once per game, go back into reserves at the end of the opponent's turn, as long as they're not within engagement range, which adds more board control to this list. He can start these in reserves and then rapid ingress them down to deal with the problem or even score some secondary points, and then use Golden Light to put them back into reserves. And the Golden Light, we used to have to put these down on the next turn. Now they stay in reserves, so he can hold on to them and then rapid ingress them down again, even past turn 3, since this is a reposition move. They also have great horde clearing potential with their ranged attacks. And like the Vertus Praetors, Archaeotech Munitions can be great for these units. This stratagem gives the Allarus ranged weapons sustained hits or lethal hits. The unit will have 6 shots from their Guardian Spears, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2, then 3d6 blast shots, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 1, from their ballistic grenade launchers. Saving this stratagem for the Vertus Praetors, shooting into light to medium infantry is probably the best move, but into horde units or even light infantry units with a character inside, it might be worth using the 1 CP, so this unit can reroll the wounds even in shooting against those character, monster, or vehicle units. Last for the non-Psykana units is the 2 units of Venatari, 1 big scary unit of 6 and 1 smaller unit to steal objectives. Including the 3 units of Vertus Praetors, This makes 5 units with the Lance ability on their melee weapons, and each of them have 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2 with the Lance ability, so +1 to the wound. 1 model with the Kinetic Destroyer and the Tarsus Buckler, which adds 1 wound to the model, good for soaking up an Overwatch or an extra 1 attack from a damage 3 weapon. Even with only 5 spears, the unit will have 25 attacks, which is still a huge melee threat. With an extra AP 1 from the detachment rule, these tear through enemy vehicles and monsters. They also have a all-game, fallback, shoot and charge ability, Strike from the Skies. Okay, so they hit hard, what else can they do? How about rapid ingress for free and multiple times per turn? The Venatari swooping dive ability actually states that it reduces rapid ingress to 0 CP, which means Stephan could rapid ingress the unit of Allarus and then bring both the Venatari in at the same time, because you are allowed to double up on the stratagem since it states that particular stratagem. These Venatari are very powerful for board control and reacting to the enemy in a way that puts Stephan's Custodes in an advantageous position. The last unit for the unit breakdown is the unit of 4 Witchseekers. He would either plant these on the home objective. If there's no real threat in the enemy strategic reserve, he may also just use the Bladechampion and Custodian guard unit to sticky his home objective with Vigilance Eternal. Then they could be used to gain some early board control. If not, they're just going to stand on the home objective. And that's the unit breakdown for Stephan Box's Adeptus Custodes Shield Host list. Let's go over a rough game plan for the list, because remember, I didn't write or play this list, so this is more of a rough game plan of what this list can do. And this is a very high skill list. There's no chaff or wardens, but a lot of speed and damage potential. There's no ranged anti-tank in the list as well, just all melee death. This honestly is a list I would have to play some. I'm guessing he used the high pressure and reactive ability of this list to keep his opponents on the back foot. The Bladechampion with the Custodian Guard can sticky multiple objectives over the course of the game with Vigilance Eternal. The 2 units of Venatari will start in reserves along with the Allarus. You could put one of these on the table and hope to get turn 2 so you can use Golden Knight turn 1, but for the most part, these are probably better in reserves. The Vertus Praetors help grab objectives early and pressure the enemy, using Sweeping Advance to get some huge movement in the turn that they do use that ability. And this is a list we may be able to watch an actual review for it on Vanguard Tactics, since this was a list used by Stephan Box. He may have a breakdown of this list, but I still want to do it myself just because I do like to cover the different kinds of lists, and this was a really interesting list. Let's end the video with some final thoughts. This looks like a really fun list to play. 8 Jetbikes, 9 Venatari, and 6 Allarus. This list has some serious speed and board control. This is the highest skill list yet in the series. There's no Wardens and there's only 1 Psykana unit, so there's not a lot of chaff in this list. What Stephan does have is the speed to react to the game and his opponents, which most of our Custodes lists lack. Most of the time it's just getting the Wardens on some objectives and finding some different ways to kill our opponents while scoring some good secondary. This list is quite a bit different from that playstyle. It's very reactive and very aggressive. And every one of his units besides the Witchseekers either have +1 to the wound roll or re-roll the wound roll. You pair that with the Shield Host Detachment rule for either crits on 5 or AP 1 in melee, this list hits hard. If you would like to see one of these lists from this series in a battle report on the channel, let me know in the comments. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.